What a bizarre world we now live in. I'm calling you from the Somerset coast at Burnham-on-Sea. I'm sure you're all in far-flung locations. It's just a bizarre world that we're now, I spend most of my time up here in my office in Somerset talking to a camera and imagining what people are doing. It's a bizarre world, and it's not been that easy to adjust to. Some people have adjusted really well, some people have adjusted less well. And so this session is really just a session for you. It's a session for you to think about your own resilience and maybe some tools and tips that you can pass on to your staff. I spend most of my time working on resilience and well-being and mental health, and there's been particular challenges relating to the lockdowns and relating to hybrid working and relating to working from home. And so I just want to spend some time with you today doing some exercises that are going to help you to respond to the challenges even better than you're currently doing. There's nothing that I can teach any of you about resilience, because you are already resilient. Resilience is the way in which we deal with external challenges, the way in which we deal with changes. And sometimes that's about absolutely thriving. Sometimes it's about just getting by. It's not necessarily about being strong. It's about having ways of coping and having ways of coping that get you through it, and sometimes having ways of coping which are going to enable you to be absolutely brilliant in the face of these challenges. But there's nothing I can teach you about any of that, because you already know, I'm sure. The trouble is that our behaviors tend to just slip a little bit. We get into some good habits and they tend just to slip a little bit. Particularly under pressure, they tend to slip. So what I'm going to do here is simply give you some exercises, or take you through maybe 3, maybe 4, depending upon how much feedback there is. Just some exercises to help you to sharpen your resilience. Because as I say, our behaviors slip when we're not noticing. So these are just some exercises to help you just to sharpen that resilience. I've got lots and lots and lots and lots of exercises. So this is just a taster of some of them. So please, please participate in these exercises. And if you want more exercises, or if you want any more information about resilience or well-being or mental health, then please contact me. If you want any exercises that you can do with your teams or your colleagues, then please contact me. So I'm going to get going straight away. So what I need you to do to start off with is to just have a think about what you're actually there for. What is the purpose of your role? So I don't mean what your actual job is, specifically. I don't even mean what are the goals that you're trying to achieve, but what are the specific, no, not specific, what actually are you there to achieve? What is the purpose of your job? So for me, I deliver training and facilitation and coaching. But what for? Well, I deliver it to enable people to make some tangible changes in their behaviors and to develop some skills. But what for? Well, so that people can achieve better performance, so that they can become more resilient, and so that they can be healthier in the broadest sense of the term. So my answer to my question would be, my role is to enable people to become better at whatever they want to do, to achieve better results, to become more resilient, and to become healthier. So what I want you to do is just to give some thought to what it is you are there to achieve. What's the purpose of your role? This is such an important part of resilience, particularly when we're slightly separated from the actual services. It's so important to remind ourselves constantly what is our purpose in work? What is it that we're here to achieve? For what purpose? For whom? And we need to do this with a passion, with some genuine excitement. We need to think about this in a very, very excited way, because I know that that you people make such a difference to people. So what is that difference? What is the difference that you make? So I'm just going to give you a minute now just to reflect on what impact you have, what your purpose is, what difference you make to other people. And I just want you to make a few notes, if you could. So Just going to give you a minute to think about that. For those who are interested in the work of Edward de Bono, who created thinking about thinking, some theories about thinking. This is known as yellow hat thinking. What do you think about that? That's not bad, is it? This is yellow hat thinking. So this is thinking about the exciting aspects of what you do, the exciting aspect of your life, the exciting aspects of your work. So no negativity here. This is just about thinking about all the fantastic impacts that you have upon people. I like this. I might wear this out later. I can't actually tell if anyone's looking because I can only see dots, but I reckon that looks okay. Okay, I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to think about all the fantastic impacts that you have upon other people. And when you've done that, just so that I can test that people are actually listening, I would like you just to jot some things in the chat box, if you could, just to reflect what you've thought. Just stick some things in the chat box to reflect these brilliant impacts, these fantastic impacts that you have upon other people, the ways in which you make a difference. Yeah, I like that. Building stronger communities. Keep coming, keep sharing these impacts that you have upon other people. It's such an important thing to remind yourself. Family organizer, that's a brilliant one. It's such an important thing to remind yourself what it is you're here for, particularly when you might be at home, working from home, separated from the actual impact. So keep sharing these things that you actually can make a difference to. Oh, there's loads coming through. Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. I love that, helping people to solve problems. Fantastic. Keep coming with just a few more, because it'd be great to hear all these brilliant impacts that you're having. In social isolation, that is absolutely brilliant. It's really good for people like me as well, people like me that support other people to make a difference. It's really good to see what sort of a difference, what sort of impact you're having. Keep coming with a few more. Brilliant, yeah. We've got arranging community events to build cohesion, providing a peaceful place for people to remember their loved ones. Saving the planet in bite-sized, what a fantastic one, Louise. Saving the planet in bite-sized pieces. Now, they're all fantastic, but I love that. I love that. Keeping the community informed, businesses that provide hybrid working, business that provides hybrid working, safety of parish residents, helping people solve problems, family organizer, building stronger community. Good, yeah, good. So it is worth actually doing this on a regular basis. It is worth actually, for your own resilience, it is worth taking a step back and remembering all of these fantastic impacts that you have upon people, and actually just spending a few minutes actually just writing them down. And when you introduce yourselves to people, or when you introduce yourselves to to groups, then talk about the impacts. There's quite a lot of research which tells us that if we can talk about the impacts, the why, not the what that we do, not the how that we do, but the why that we do, why we're doing it, what purpose we have, what is the impact. If we can communicate that, then we're much, much more powerful communicators. So that's fantastic. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is just to relax, sit down in your chair, and relax, and just to have a think about a scenario in which you've had a brilliant day, the ideal day. And I don't mean just the ideal working day. I mean the ideal day at work and outside of work. I'm going to take my hat off, even though I like it. So the ideal day, both in work and out of work. You're sitting down at the end of this ideal day. So this is just before you go to bed. You're sitting down and you're thinking everything's gone really well. Everything's gone really well at work. I've managed to overcome the challenges that I've had to overcome. I've managed to fit everything in. Outside of work, I've done something to look after myself physically. I've had some nice food, spoke to people, socialize, whatever it is, rest, relax, whatever it is that really works for you. So you're sitting down at the end of this ideal day, whenever it is that you go to bed, 10:30, 11, 9:30, 12, whatever, whenever it is that you go to bed, and you're thinking, this has gone brilliantly this day. My question for you is, what has actually happened in this day to make you feel so good about it? What has happened in this day to make it the ideal day? And again, I just want you to spend a couple of minutes just writing down, what is it about this day that's made you feel so good? What is it about this day that has made it ideal? This is a work day, remember? I don't want you to think about a day when you're just relaxing by the beach or in bed. This is a day when you're at work and when everything's gone well. What has actually happened at work to make it so good? What has actually happened after work to make it so good? Maybe you've done some exercise, maybe you've gone for a run, walked the dog, maybe you've gone swimming, had a game of badminton, had some really nice food, done some relaxation, managed to switch off from work. You just spend a bit of time writing down, what is this ideal day for you? Just in case you can't see it, one other brilliant comment from Lisa was providing a hub for a community larder to help those in need and to reduce food waste. What a great purpose. Okay, so when you're ready, and take your time over this because I want us to spend another few minutes on this. When you're ready, just type into the chat box just a sort of a list of the things that have happened during the day to make you feel so good at the end of it. So, you know, if for you it's been that you've managed to, I don't know, maybe finish at 5 or finish at 5:30, and then you haven't thought about work, maybe that is for you what makes it a brilliant day. Maybe it's that you've done some exercise. Maybe it's that you've ticked off your list, everything, you know, your task list, you've done everything in your task list. Maybe it's that you've done something which actually has a genuine impact upon somebody. Maybe you've spent a bit of time talking to friends and meeting loved ones. So just when you're ready, just type into the chat box what it is that's made this such an ideal day. The reason for doing this, of course, is that unless you know what an ideal day is, you're unlikely to ever have it. So if you want to make a difference to your well-being and to your resilience, then you've really got to know what it is you're trying to get to. What sort of a day is a brilliant day, is an ideal day? Unless you know where you're going, it's very hard to get there. Yeah, so Julia's written, got through everything on the to-do list. Positive feedback from residents, maybe even finished work on time. Yeah, Carol says, somebody said thank you. You've helped somebody, feeling you've made a difference to the community or the individual. What else? What about some things outside of work, maybe, that has made this such a brilliant day? Maybe you've had some lovely food. Yeah, productivity level achieved, made community members feel included and had some positive feedback. Family swim sessions, brilliant. Spent time with the animals in the garden. What a fantastic balance. Done everything I planned to do and feel energized, even though I should be tired. That's a really interesting one. Peter, that's a good one. And you know what it takes to feel energized, I'm going to tell you soon. 10,000 steps. How many have I done today? 2,851. I've got to get moving. I've got to get moving. I love that your husband has cooked. Keep coming. Keep coming with these fantastic things that you've done during the day that has made you feel so good at the end of the day. Time with grandkids. Yeah. Yeah. Your mum remembers who I am. Huh? Yeah, maybe wife takes you to the pub after work. I like that. I like that from Chris. Your wife takes you to the pub after work. You never know. Maybe today's the day for that. Maybe today's the day. Being kind to somebody and making them smile. Yeah. Keep coming with a few other things that have made this the ideal day. Because as you write them down, you become more committed to them. You become more committed to making them happen. Feeling the sun on your face. It's actually here in Somerset. It's surprisingly sunny, I've got to say right now. Certainly makes a difference to me. So what we know about, one of the things that we know about resilience is that you've got to be kind to yourself. You've got to look after yourself. You know, human beings are very interesting creatures because we are kinder to much kinder to each other than we are to ourselves. We're actually much kinder to our animals than we are to ourselves. You know, I was reading some research the other day which was saying that that around 50% of medication that's prescribed goes untaken. So only about 50% of people that are prescribed medication actually take it consistently as they're supposed to. Whereas if you have medication prescribed for your dog, for example, then you absolutely make sure that your dog is taking that medication. You crush it up, you put it into the food, you absolutely make sure that that happens every single day. So we are much kinder to others, and we're much kinder to animals than we are to ourselves. If you want to be truly resilient, and that is to be able to deal with all the challenges and the changes that happen, then you have to really look after yourself. And by looking after yourself, we mean you have to look after your body. So you have to exercise. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to the gym, but it means you have to do some form of exercise. It means you have to you have to move. You have to do some exercise. The guidance actually on exercise is that you should be looking for, as adults, that you should be looking to do at least 30 minutes of at least moderate intensity physical activity at least 5 times a week. So at least 30 minutes of at least moderate intensity physical activity at least 5 times a week. That's the minimum. And And that could be just walking, or it could be swimming, or it could be running, or it could be cycling, or it could be doing whatever it is you do, playing badminton, table tennis, gardening, walking for the bus. It could be anything that moves your body, that works your body. And the other guidance, which is pretty well accepted, is that human beings shouldn't really be sitting down for longer than an hour at a time. So that you should be actually just moving a little bit every hour. And that does make a difference. If you don't do it, try it. It's worth actually trying it. So we need to look after ourselves physically. We need to remember things like, our flexibility and our balance and those sorts of things, as well as movement. We need to be looking after ourselves in terms of the food that we eat. We need to be looking after ourselves in terms of rest and relaxation. We need to be looking after our minds. So we need to be exercising our mind. So we need to be doing creative and analytical tasks on a regular basis. We need to be, here's a really important one. What we know about resilience is that you have to spend time in the moment, to absorb into doing something. That time where you're doing something that you love doing and you're absolutely absorbed into it rather than thinking about the future or the past. This is the state of being mindful, where you're absolutely absorbed into the moment, not thinking about the present, not thinking about the past. We know that you've got to spend time in the present, in the moment. Otherwise, your body generates chemicals which create stress and anxiety, notably cortisol, which is a chemical that's only generated when you're thinking about the future or when you're thinking about the past. It can't be generated when you're in the moment. We know also that social activity is really important for our resilience. Spending time having fun, socializing. We also know that spending time with loved ones, with people closest to us, is absolutely vital for our resilience. So just bear all of those things in mind when you're thinking about what that ideal day is. The difficulty, of course, with hybrid working, the difficulty with working from home is structure, is creating that structure. So the goal really is to create a work structure which enables you to start work at a certain time, finish work at a certain time, if that's possible, but then do something which looks after your body, do something which looks after your mind, do something which looks after your social relationships, do something which looks after the relationships with your loved ones, and have some rest. I'm going to say that again because it's so significant in terms of resilience. So we need to work out a structure so that we start at a certain time, complete our work so that we can finish at a certain time, put work aside, if we can, and then do something which is good for us in terms of our body, in terms of our mind, in terms of our social relationships, in terms of our personal relationships, the relationships with our loved ones. And we need to try not to let those habits slip. Well, they all slip. I mean, everyone's good well-being habits slip. But we need to just constantly remind ourselves so that we can sharpen it, so we can sharpen the saw. And that's really the purpose of today. So you've got to give yourself a structure. What I'd love you to do is just to tell me in the chat box, what are the main challenges that you face with achieving that ideal day? What are the main challenges that you face? What are the things that get in the way of you achieving that ideal day? So just jot down, because it's really important to share these sorts of challenges with others. So yeah, just jot down in the chat box the main things, the main barriers that get in the way of you having this perfect day. I mean, obviously, in some cases, you can't always feel the sun on your face. Interruptions in time management from Chloe, yeah. Overcommit my time to others. Yeah. Time poor. I work with literally thousands of people on this subject, and the similar things. It's an interesting point. Similar things come up. But people have got solutions for these. People have got ways of overcoming these. And it's interesting to know how people overcome some of these. Unplanned phone calls, unforeseen things happening, disgruntled residents, outside influences. Keep coming up with the things that get in the way of you having this ideal day. I mean, for example, what stops you from exercising? What stops you from eating fantastic food? What stops you from spending time that you need with others? Yeah, keep coming up with these things that get in the way. I love that one, Louise. Procrastination. Yeah, tasks From Peter, tasks take longer than planned and means less time spent on other issues that are equally important. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Keep coming up with some others, one or two others. The procrastination one, I'm going to just, well, it'd be interesting to see what sort of tips people have got for each other. Procrastination, Louise, is a really interesting one because, yeah, I was just reading one of the barriers myself, not being content and trying to achieve more. I just want to make a few comments on some of these. I want to make a few comments, and that is that I want to make the comment about procrastination. And I mean, so many people, almost everybody procrastinates from time to time. And I was chuckling when I read the quote from Mark Twain about that, which is this, that if you've got to eat a frog, do it first thing in the morning. You've got to eat a frog. If your task is to eat a frog, do it first thing in the morning. If your goal is to eat 2 frogs, eat the biggest one first, which I think is a brilliant message. So really the trick is to do the message is do the difficult tasks first. Do the difficult tasks first, and then you feel brilliant once you've done the difficult tasks first. Then you can do the things which are less significant. You've got it out the way. You've got the difficult ones out the way. You've got the big frog out the way. Yeah, and I like this comment that says, doing too much for others and not thinking about my own needs. But take it from me. I mean, this was me. That was a comment that describes me. You know, I'm just a fellow traveller on the resilience front. My resilience has gone up and down like anyone else's, and had a massive dip at one stage to the extent that I was in a very serious state. And, you know, I was a person that worked 60, 70 hours a week, only ever concentrated on work. I found myself in a desperate state and I couldn't carry on. And what was really interesting was that what I hadn't noticed was that I was no longer working very effectively. In fact, my work was pretty poor, but I had never actually noticed that. I just knew that I was tired and that you know, I was out of shape physically, and that I was in a, you know, and I didn't have much of a social life, etc., etc., etc. But actually, what had also happened is that my work had gone backwards, and you've got to bear that in mind, that your work goes backwards. So resilience is not only about looking after yourself, it's also about looking after what it is you were trying to do in the first place, which is your work. So it's about looking after yourself and looking after your work. There's a real nice comment there from Peter. Working at home when the house is primarily a family place as opposed to being the workplace. Yeah. So here's some tips. And these aren't tips from me. These are just some tips from people that I've spent lots of time working with, you know, around the world on this subject. When you're working from home, regardless of what the space is, treat it as if you're in the office. So one of the things that quite a lot of people do, and that a lot of people tell me, is that they when they're working from home, they wake up in the morning. And one of the things that we know, by the way, the research about this is quite clear, that for your well-being and resilience, one of the tricks is to get up at the same time every day. It doesn't really matter what that time is, but to get up at the same time every day, regardless of whether it's a work day or a non-work day. Because if you get up at different times, it confuses your circadian rhythms, which are our energy rhythms that are built into us. And we've all got slightly different circadian rhythms, but if we get up at different times, it confuses those. It's even if so sleeping in the morning tends to make us tireder, tends to make us more tired. I'm sure we've all had that experience. It tends to make us more tired. So get up at the same time, go and have breakfast, then go and get dressed for work. Go and get dressed as if you were going into work, because obviously what you wear triggers a different state of mind. It triggers a state of mind which is going to enable you to focus with all your determination and all of your passion and all of your creativity in what you have to do. So get dressed up. So one of the tips that I learned was that when I'm doing sessions like this, I actually get myself dressed up, and I actually put sort of aftershave on to make myself smell nice, which is sort of bizarre because nobody can smell me, I don't think. But I've made you'll be pleased to know that I've made myself smell really nice. So you know, I do that simply because it triggers me into a sort of a work mode. But then what I know a lot of people do is they go out of their house, go for a walk as if they're walking into work, and then come back in and then start work as if they've arrived in work. So they go out to their house, then come back in, then immediately go to that place of work that they've designated in their home. And then at the end of the day, they reverse the process. So they leave, put their laptop shut, go outside, go for a walk, then cut back down again. It's a really interesting approach. It takes a bit of discipline, but it does make a real difference. In terms of space at home, well, you do need a dedicated space, ideally, but if you haven't, create one temporarily during the day. So what about thinking about a collapsible desk or a table that is just for work, that you erect when you come into work and that you dismantle when you leave work, for those who are not lucky enough like myself to have an office. This office in here I only use for work. I go out of it and don't come back into it until I'm about to work again. So yeah, I'm just flicking through just to see if there's any other things that are worth actually giving you tips on. There's a comment here about unforeseen things happening. Well, here's an interesting point, and it is a comment from Linda about unforeseen things happening during the day which get in the way. Well, unforeseen things will always happen. The one thing that you can foresee about the nature of modern work is that there will always be unforeseen things. So one of the things that people say to me that really have got this cracked is that they plan for unforeseen things. So I came across one person who said that they write down their to-do list, the things they need to achieve on the day, and then they take 25% of it off. 25% of it off they take and put to the next day, because they know there are going to be some unforeseen things, because we can foresee that there are going to be unforeseen things. And so their expectations for the day are a lot lower than most people's. This particular person, his expectations for the day were a lot lower. So that gave him space and time to do the unforeseen thing, because the unforeseen things are of course part of your work. They're not distractions. They are part of your work, of course. And it makes a difference. What affects people is having a long list of things that's not ticked off. So if you've got a shorter list of things, it does have a real positive impact upon you. I also just wanted to make the point that everybody has got too much in this day and age. Everybody's got too much work to do and not enough time to do it in. So we just have to be aware that the trick is to work out what the real priorities are. What are the real priorities, and spend all your time and energy on those things. And then the things that aren't your priorities, take less time. You'll never achieve everything because there simply is too much to do. Bearing in mind the resources that people have available, particularly in the public and in the not-for-profit sector, there is simply too much to do. And so the days when we can organise our diaries properly, going back to the 90s when we did time management training, which is all about organising diaries, sure, that's important, but there will still be things you can't manage to fit in. So work out what is the big priority. Think about them as big rocks that you're going to put into your daily glass. Do the big rocks first, and the rest then you can fill in later if you can. Work out what the most important things are and absolutely spend all of your energy and time on those. My final tip, before we just move on to a final exercise, my final tip is about energy. Is all humans can generate energy. Energy is partly caused by doing the right amount of physical activity. It's partly caused by having the right amount of rest and having the right amount of sleep. It's partly caused by what you eat, making sure that your blood sugar levels are at the right level. It's partly caused by hydration. So hydration wears away your energy. If you are dehydrated, rather, it wears away your energy. So what you drink, sleep, rest, making sure your blood sugar levels are at the right level, and making sure you exercise maintains your energy. But also, we all have our own circadian rhythms. So we all are more energetic at certain times than others. We've got more energy at certain times of the day. Work out when your circadian rhythms are at their highest. Work out when you are at your most energetic and plan to do the things that matter most at that particular time. Okay, I want to just do one more exercise. We've got time for one more exercise. And for this, you're going to need either some post-it notes. I've got some post-it notes here, or you're going to need pieces of paper that you've just torn up into squares. So you need little squares of paper or these little sticky notes. you're going to need a few of them. So a pad of little post-it notes, other sticky notes are available, post-it notes, and or just tear up some pieces of paper into small squares. And you're going to need a pen, and you're going to need a bin. So you're going to need a pen, some post-it notes or paper torn up into squares, and a bin. The bin is optional. You don't have to have the bin, but that's optional. Okay. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds or so just to get yourself prepared with your pen and your little sticky notes here. Your pen and your sticky notes. And I'm going to do an exercise with you that we do with people on a regular basis, and we ask people to do it on a regular basis. And the purpose of this exercise is to train your mind to focus on what matters. The trouble with human beings is that we've got lots and lots and lots and lots of thoughts going around in our mind, lots of thoughts. And what the difficulty with that is that not only makes us less effective at doing what we have to do, because our minds tend to flip from backwards and forwards, particularly when you're working from home. When you're working from home, you've got so many different influences. So our minds tend to flick. Well, the trick is, of course, to focus on what we can do something about and to focus on what we're actually doing, because not only does that make us more effective, but also if our minds are flicking backwards and forwards, then it tends to generate stress. It generates cortisol, which generates stress and anxiety. So what this exercise is an exercise to train your mind to think about the things that you can do something about and to declutter your mind from all of those other things that are going on. And it's one, if you do on a regular basis, works really well. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is to think about all the things that are currently occupying your mind space, all the things that are currently in your mind. And I want you to write each thing on one post-it note. So for example, I've got a big training session to do this afternoon. It is on my mind. So I'm writing training session there on one post-it note. And I'm just going to tear it off and I'm going to stick it on my desk over here. So that's that training session that I've got to do. I've also got a major piece of work that I've got to do for somebody, which I don't need to go into the detail of, but it's a major plan that I've got to create for somebody. So that's in my mind. So I'm just going to tear that off and put that on my table over here. I'm actually supposed to be at a meeting this afternoon that I can't go to, but I'm a bit sort of concerned about what's going to be discussed. So that keeps coming into my mind. Nothing I can do about it, but it comes into my mind all the same. So I'm writing that on a post-it note. So one thing per post-it note or per little piece of paper. Do this exercise if you can. This is a brilliant exercise to do and to repeat on a regular basis. But there's other things that are on my mind. So when I came here, I'm here in my attic office. And when I came in just before I turned on my camera, I noticed there's some damp in the corner. And that's the trouble with working from home. There's so many different things coming into your mind because it's your home. And I noticed there's some damp, and I'm going to write damp there. Okay. I noticed when I went downstairs, my wife seems to be redecorating the dining room. I've got to say that concerns me. The fact that she's redecorating the dining room. She hasn't really consulted me at all about anything. So that is on my mind. I've got lots of personal things going on at the moment, which I don't need to talk about, but which they need to go on post-it notes as well. They need to go on post-it notes. Absolutely, lots of personal things going on. They need to go on post-it notes. My son and his college at the moment, it's in my mind all the time because it isn't going brilliantly. So that's on my mind. So just keep going with these things. Just keep putting them down, sticking them down or putting them down in front of you. I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to do this. Just to keep writing these things down and putting them down on the desk in front of you. Keep writing these things down. So you'll have, I don't know, you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got about 10 pieces of paper. You might well have a few more than that. I'm just going to give you another 30 seconds. This is called our sphere of concern. It's the things that are in our head, our sphere of concern. The things that are in our head now, tomorrow it might well be different. Okay. What I want you to do now is to have a look at these pieces of paper in front of you. And I want you to think, be really hard on yourself. Of these pieces of paper, what can you do something about? What will you do something about? Not what can you do something about, what will you do something about today? So when you finish this this webinar today, of these things, what will you do something about? So look, and then I want you to tick the things that you're going to do something about, and it might only be a couple of things. You've got to be hard on yourself. So look, I'm not going to do anything about the damp. There's nothing I can do about the damp, because even if I wanted to, I don't know what to do, and I've got lots of other things to do. So the damp, I'm not going to tick. The training that I'm going to do this afternoon, I'm going to do, and I'll do the prep for it. And actually, this piece of work that I've got to do for a client, I'm not going to do today, because just thinking about my day, I've got to do this training course. It's going to go until 4:30. I've got to do post-training reflection. I've then got to have a catch up on a few emails. Well, I could do this piece of work, but I'll be here until 8 o'clock doing it. So I'm not going to tick that, because I don't want to be till 8 o'clock, because I really need to go out for a walk later, or go out for a run maybe. So, and in fact, I'm not even going to talk to my wife about the decorating for today. I'm going to put that out of my head, leave that to another day. So just tick the things that you're going to do today, not tomorrow, but today. I'm left with just this, which is the training course I'm going to do, which is in my head. No point in it being in my head now, but as soon as I finish this, it can be in my head. And then what I need you to do is this. It's actually very, very common for people only to take one thing. I need you to pick up everything else and then tear it up and get your bin and throw it in the bin. If you haven't got a bin, what you can do, if you haven't got a bin, is tear it up, because this is an important metaphor for your mind. Tear it up and you can just throw it away. Except that I've now got to pick it up, otherwise my wife would be really angry with me. What did I do? There's going to be loads of paper all over the floor. So yeah, but tear it up. You've got to tear it up. Don't just screw it up, because if you screw it up, then later on you'll go back and unravel it. Either metaphorically or actually, you'll go back and unravel it. So actually tear these things up, throw them in the bin. But I'm tearing up the damp. I'm going to tear up the damp. And in the process of tearing up, I'm going to make sure that it's not in my head at all. I'm going to tear up the piece of work. I'm going to tear those up. My son's college difficulties, I'm tearing up. So I'm going to tear those up. And I'm going to be left with just the thing in my mind that I can do something about. Okay. And if any of those other thoughts come into my mind, if any of those other thoughts come into your mind, you need to push them out of your mind by focusing on what it is you can do something about, or by going and doing something which does occupy your mind. Focus on what you can do something about. Focus on that with all of your creativity and energy and a passion, or do something else which really engages your mind. And this is a nice exercise to help you to declutter your mind and to focus on the things that you're actually trying to do and the things that you can do something about. Okay, so just a sample of a few exercises then. Questions? Any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Steve. That was very informative. I'm sure people gained a lot from that session. You did look wonderful in your hat, by the way.
Good, thank you.
Yellow and sparkly.
Is it good to wear it out? Should I wear it out?
I wouldn't wear it in pub. I wouldn't wear it in public. No, not if I was you. But you know, it's up to you. It depends how much attention you want to draw to yourself. And I did find myself nodding at the screen a lot during that session, and I also found myself standing up to make sure I moved, because I realized I hadn't moved for an hour. So thank you for all of that. I haven't seen any questions come up. Linda, have you got any questions that have come up in the chat?
I think actually it's interesting that people haven't asked questions because I think they've been so interacting. They've been interacting with you.
Yes.
So I think that's why. But if
could I then ask, can I give you all a challenge because we've got 1 minute left. So let me give you all a challenge. And that is this. As you go away today, commit yourself to doing at least one thing differently. Commit yourself to doing one thing differently as a result of what we've just discussed today, or as a result of anything else that's in your mind. So it might be to, you know, focus on the impact that you can make. It might be to visualize your ideal day. It might be to do more exercise. It might be to hydrate yourself. It might be to go walking more. It might be to make more time for yourself. It might be to do something to create more structure in the day, do something to create more energy. It might simply be spending more time, you know, on yourself, spending more time with people, you know, around you. Or it might be doing that type of exercise to focus your mind on what you can do something about. But commit to doing something differently. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for all of your addresses, and I'm going to come around to your houses to check. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? It'd be great if I could do that. But in any case, if not, what I want to do is to make sure you've got my contact details. I'm sort of looking towards Chris and Louise to make sure that you've got my contact details, so that you can contact me if you want any more exercises, if you want any more support, or just the chat, or if you want to tell me some of the things that you do differently as a result of today. Because otherwise, I'm Billy No Mates. I'm just up here in my office talking to cameras the whole time, and just say it's nice to actually have a chat to humans for a change.
I will post your contact details into the chat so that anybody can have access to those. I'll do that now, Steve. Thank you.
And also, it's lunch coming up, so make sure that you eat some vegetables. As many plants as you possibly can is the trick. Thought I'd just add that in.
Oh, well, Steve, thank you very much. And looking forward to actually sort of getting a little more exercise in, which I think is probably my biggest challenge these days. So fitting that in. It's somebody needs to invent some form of digital headset, so as I'm jogging along I can be programming with a heads-up display, and then I'll be all right. I'll be doing both at the same time.
Good idea.
All right, Steve, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.